This morning on Inside Kansas Politics.
Woo! I got champagne in my eyes.
It's been a hot season for the boys in blue. The Kansas City Royals hosting a playoff game for the first time in nearly a decade.
Best memories of my life. I mean, life is good.
Will a few successful games this year be enough to push Kansas and Missouri lawmakers to fight for the team's new stadium?
I got asked today if I'd take 50-yard line tickets to watch the Chiefs play the AFC Championship. No, I'm going to be right here watching my Kansas City Royals.
Plus,
I see the ads, I see the vote yes, and I see the vote no.
Sports betting is on the ballot in Missouri. If voters say yes, could it push Kansas to take action on other hot-button issues like marijuana? From the Kansas State Capitol, this is Inside Kansas Politics. You're taking a look inside Kansas politics. Welcome in. I'm Rebecca Chung. Star bonds. Well, you've probably heard a lot about that this year, especially with plans to bring the Chiefs or Royals to Kansas. But a new audit shows that there could be some issues with the program. We're diving into those details today. Political analyst Bob Beatty is here with me now to break everything down. And Bob, let's talk a little bit about the findings of this audit, because this is a follow-up to an audit that was done in 2021. This one, though, mainly focusing on the impact of the quality of life in these districts.
Well, it's interesting because one of the arguments in terms of this study is that it's hard to measure quality of life, and that the legislature in the Star Bonds legislation really doesn't clarify what exactly quality of life is, and so that makes it difficult to measure. And so I think when we think about Star Bonds, and of course that's taxpayer money going to help, lure businesses or sports teams to Kansas, we have to think about two things, which is in terms of data, of whether it's good use of taxpayer money. And one thing we think about is objective data, like dollars brought in, how many dollars versus how many dollars were spent. And that's fairly easy to do, because you get how much money was spent by the state, and then you have some sort of data that tells you how much came in after whatever was brought in, whether it's a sports stadium or a tourist attraction. And so that's been done. You mentioned a previous audit, and it was sort of mixed results. The other is subjective. And that's where we get into sports teams, and you have some follow-up questions, I know. Sports teams are a little bit different because in terms of objective data, there's been numerous studies that economic incentives are what cities pay out. They don't get the money back necessarily, but it's in terms of subjective. When you think about subjective, that is something we can't quantify. So we just saw some clips of Royals fans. How do we quantify that happiness? How do we quantify the excitement of a city or a people? Can you put dollars on it? You really can't. So we just saw a clip of the fans saying, you could give me all these things, still I want to be here. So he was basically saying, basically he could have said, you could give me all this money and I'd still want to be here. So that makes this a very divisive issue, the Star Bonds and the economic incentives. It also, and I think they're right to say this, makes them say, what does quality of life mean?
To measure, whatever goals or benchmarks that they have.
Right. And so they're sort of saying to the legislature, I think the auditors, what is it we're looking at here? And it's hard for us to look at quality of life if it goes into these areas like happiness and excitement and pride in the city. You can't really put dollars on that, whereas other people want to say, hey, we want dollars and we don't think this is a good investment. Because we want to look at it in dollars and cents.
Well, even though this last Star Bonds package for, bringing a sports team over to Kansas passed with majority of lawmakers voting in favor of it, there was still a lot of skepticism around it and whether this actually pays off in the long run. So do you think, given this audit and what we're seeing, that we could see lawmakers maybe take action in regard to Star Bonds in the next legislative session, or maybe be a bit even more hesitant if other projects are brought up and use this as a citing point?
I don't see the legislature making any changes to what they've already passed, because it really was, as we've talked about before, for the Royals and the Chiefs, and that's talk about subjective. The way Kansans and Missourians and fans react to the Chiefs and now the Royals is something to behold, but it's also, I don't think the legislators want to touch that because it's kind of like gold. The Chiefs have been gold the last few years. Although your question is a good one, because what about other possibilities for star bonds? We'll sort of going overboard in a way with the Chiefs and the Royals, which is, sort of rushing into that. Will that affect possibly down the road other star bonds projects? I think you're right. I think there's a possibility it will, because maybe even a little bit of latent guilt about how quickly they acted on the Chiefs and the Royals, to maybe look at, with this audit as well, to look at the next star bond project a little more carefully.
There's only a few states that have this. Kansas, one of them.
Yes, and in the end, it's a pro-business item. So many Kansas legislators are pro-business, but also pro-low taxes, and that sort of collides with the star bonds, doesn't it?
Yeah. Let's also talk about why Kansas passed this year's star bonds bill in the first place, because they're trying to get a pro sports team over. Right now we're talking Chiefs or Royals, but emphasis has mainly been placed on the Chiefs and getting them over across the state line. But now the Royals having such a great season, right? They hosted a playoff game at home for the first time in nearly a decade. The team is coming out stronger than we've seen in past seasons. So ticket sales also skyrocketing, have to mention that. But do you think that will also maybe push them, maybe push that hunger to bring even the Royals over to this side of the state line, or have, some sort of effect on the fight that we're seeing between Kansas and Missouri to keep the Royals?
Yeah, the Royals have had a very surprising season. This is a team that some thought could lose, 100 games again, as they have done in previous years since they were successful. So this is a big surprise, a wonderful surprise that they had such a good season. However, it really looked like with the star bonds in some ways that the Royals were added to the star bonds package, and the Chiefs were the main focus, because as I've just mentioned, the success of the Chiefs has just been unbelievable, and the passion of the fans. Baseball is a bit different because football, even when a team is losing, they still make pretty good money, and the fan base still can be very, very passionate, and they still can actually get very, very good crowds. We've seen a number of teams, baseball teams over the years, have new stadiums, and studies have shown that the first couple of years after the new stadium, even if the team's not very good, they get good crowds and do well. But it really can taper off. So 5, 6, 7 years down the road, there's only 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 fans there. So baseball, it's not such a dramatic effect possibly if the team doesn't win. I think football is a little bit different. So I think it's more of a guaranteed. Kansas would get a lot of those tax dollars back, hopefully, because the taxing would occur at the stadium that's built. So there's a bit. I think there's more of a gamble with the Kansas City Royals. The second part is that the Royals seem quite anxious and intent on building a downtown stadium. That's their real hope. Whereas the Chiefs seem a little more open to, hey, if we can get a really good deal, yeah, why not go on the other side into Kansas. So I think right now I'd say it's much more of a long shot for the Royals. All
right, Bob, thank you so much. Sports betting, it's on the ballot in Missouri. Where things stand as we get closer to Election Day, and could it push Kansas to move the needle on other legislation like marijuana? Hint, hint. That's next. We'll be right back. You're watching Inside Kansas Politics.
It's amazing how quickly life can change. But through it all, your Renewal by Andersen windows remain the same. Renewal by Andersen Windows, built for life. Save $350 on windows and $500 on patio doors with free installation, plus no interest and no payments for 12 months.
Can you believe it's already back to school season? We know that all you parents out there are busy in preparation for the new school year. One of the most important things you can do for your children before they head back to the classroom is to make sure they are ready for success. At Grace Med, we offer comprehensive school physicals, immunization shots, eye exams, and dental checkups. Plus, we can help with applying for or renewing your child's CanCare Medicaid card. So make your appointment at Grace Med. Call 785-861-8800 today.
I'm Justin Glasgow, owner of Performance Tire and Auto. This season, don't just change your tires, upgrade them and save. From now until November 30th, get up to a $100 Cooper Tire reward with a purchase of 4 qualifying tires. Drive away confident no matter what the weather. Your journey to winter driving safety begins here. Visit us at either of our 2 locations, 17th and Topeka Boulevard or 1735 North Kansas Avenue.
Vanderbilt's fall clearance event is happening now. Get all-day comfort with these Durango Rebel boots. Your choice, $119.99. FinTech thermal-lined hoodie. Closeout price, $19.99. Save $75 on Western work boots from Irish Setter, $99.99. Great buy on Wrangler Snap Western flannel shirt, starting at $21.99.
Your work boots center, Vanderbilt.
Welcome back. Missouri is now looking at legalizing sports betting. It's a ballot question this year, but will it pay off if voters say yes? Jonathan Ketz has more.
I see the ads, I see the vote yes, and I see the vote no ads for both.
Jan Zimmerman says the Missouri Gaming Commission has done a lot of research when it comes to how much tax revenue will be generated if sports betting becomes legal.
There I just saw an ad, $100 million for teachers in classrooms. I would never absolutely say unequivocally that that's going to take place.
That ad appears to have come from Winning for Missouri Education, who's telling people to vote yes on Amendment 2. It released a study that shows legalized sports betting could generate $100 million for public education in the state over the next 5 years. On the no side, however, Missourians against the deceptive online gambling amendment pointed to the fiscal note the Missouri State Auditor's Office released on this initiative petition. It says an operator can deduct up to 25% of the gross costs of promotional credits and free plays. As a result, it says, the Gaming Commission anticipates the operator could pay zero gaming taxes for sports wagering.
That is exactly why that 25% language is in there, Jonathan, because, and you're perfect to look into this issue. You'll remember when Kansas passed sports betting, it did not generate that much revenue the first year because they didn't cap those deductions.
According to Missouri's fiscal note, Kansans wagered more than $194 million in sports bets in February of 2023, but the state only received more than $1,100 in tax revenue.
Yeah, we had to chuckle a bit there, right? I mean, we got a bit of the short end of the stick when it came to sports betting when we legalized it a couple of years ago. So really, this is now raising questions about how much can be made in Missouri if they were to legalize this. So some arguing that we could even be making more here on the Kansas side if we did some things differently, right?
Oh my gosh, no question about it. I mean, some have argued Kansas got taken, which is ironic because it's gambling. There's articles in the New York Times, there was national stories about this. And yeah, the fact of the matter is that what's important is the actual law that is passed. And we just saw there that having a cap on the tax deduction is really important because what we saw when gambling was unveiled in Kansas once it was legal, many of you watched television or heard it on the radio, wherever, is that the promotional bets that the DraftKings and others were giving out were tax deductible. So they were losing money on it, but then gaining more money, you know how the whole thing works. Mm-hmm. So here's the deal. If Missouri passes this, which they very well could, two things could happen, which are both not good for Kansas. I mean, really, is Missouri passes it, and now some of the people that are gambling in Kansas, they can stay in Missouri, and gamble there, and so that money would be lost to Kansas. And two is that Missouri might make more money than Kansas, and so again showing off that the Kansas law was not very good. And so this is an interesting sort of aspect of Kansas going first. Yes, it went first, passed the bill, received money. But Missouri, by waiting, might actually quickly gain more money than Kansas got by not doing the bill that Kansas passed.
You know what Missouri was first on, though, if we're talking about the two states? legalizing marijuana. So
Yes.
could this, legalizing sports betting on their side, maybe driving up the competition there, also maybe have Kansas seeking other places where they should be making revenue or could be making revenue when it comes to aspects like legalizing even medical marijuana here in this state?
That's a really good question. I think first, if Missouri passes this law and then indeed they're making more money than Kansas on gambling, it could prompt Kansas to look at its gambling law. I mean, pass a different law that makes more money for Kansas, but you're right. It could also prompt this idea of, Kansas, for good or ill, is in competition with Missouri for a number of things. And again, if Missouri is doing things like, better, making more money with gambling, with marijuana sales, is Kansas going to react to that? I will say that so far, the Kansas legislature has been incredibly stubborn about marijuana. So even when other states say, okay, Colorado especially, hey, making this much money, it's going to our education, whatever, Kansas has still decided not to legalize at least medical marijuana. And I think that's also going to be dependent on the marijuana discussion, on whether the Republicans keep a supermajority, but that's a whole other discussion.
You know what, we do have a special committee meeting coming up, though, on marijuana, and that's October 16th. Do you think this will be the year, 2025, will 2025 be the year that Kansas legalizes weed in some form, some fashion?
I'm going to keep saying no until it happens, and then I'll say, okay, I was wrong. But but a few years ago I said yes, and then since then I've been saying no, because again, every year, the past few years, the Republican majority in the Kansas legislature has come up with some reason, some excuse, some story about why we can't do it this year. And usually it's running out of time, which of course is the funniest one, because all you have to do is, you're right, put it up early enough in the calendar to study it. Maybe that's the sign, what you just said, that it's earlier this year that the discussion begins. So maybe a much better chance this year if they're actually talking about it, rather than waiting till the end of the session.
Yeah.
Hey, let's do marijuana. Start at the beginning.
Bob, thank you so much. Tax cuts, we all love them, but could we see more in 2025? Right now, a battle is brewing between Republican leadership and the governor. How it could impact your tax dollars. We'll be right back. You're watching Inside Kansas Politics.
At Budget Blinds, our family cares about your family. We'd love to show you all the options that eliminate the hazards of hanging cords with products that have been certified best for kids by the Window Coverings Manufacturers Association.
Call today.
Cloud's vibrant faculty and staff provide an environment where students can explore their future and fulfill their potential. We are Cloud proud of our strong sense of community that's made us the best community college for student success. Are you ready to build your foundation? Join T-Bird Nation.
Topeka ER and Hospital is proud to help bring you a 27 News series, recognizing local women who are making a positive impact in our communities.
Watch Everything Woman on 27 News, sponsored by Sharp Honda, Topeka ER and Hospital, and Washburn University.
Hi, this is Voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson. If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide or experiencing a mental health or substance use crisis, 988 provides direct connection to free, confidential, and compassionate support. When you call, text, or chat 988, you will be quickly connected to trained crisis counselors who will listen to your concerns, provide support, and connect you to additional resources if needed. For 24/7 non-judgmental support, just call, text, or chat 988.
Welcome to the most honest commercial you've ever seen. Not the cleanest, just the most honest.
Today, we're fixing a home's foundation.
I mean, that is like the most common thing to see in the world.
Pretty common, yeah.
Right.
So it's the soil that's eroding away, causing those cavities, those voids that the foundation then wants to settle into.
And then you guys with your superhero capes show up and fix everything.
Yes, sir.
Get a free and honest inspection with Foundation Recovery Systems, a Groundworks company.
Next year, Republican leaders are promising property tax cuts, but the governor is saying not so fast. Welcome back to Inside Kansas Politics. We're here with political analyst Bob Beatty. And Bob, the governor is asking lawmakers, obviously, to hold up, wait a minute before we do any more cuts, because we want to see the full impact of the cuts that we already have. So let's kind of go over those that we had from this past session.
Well, you know, it's a complicated package, and you and I certainly know that it was a special session. It took a special session of tax cuts, and we should also add that the food sales tax cut was a 3-year process, and that is also kicking in January. So that we have to add that to the tax cuts, along with some of the income tax cuts and corporate tax cuts, and it was a very large package in the hundreds of millions of dollars per year. And Governor Kelly kept, you know, battling with the Republican legislature, and they weren't that far off in terms of the end result, but, you know, really 20, 30, 50, 60, 80 million dollars a year, which sounds like a lot of money, but in terms of the package wasn't. But she was really trying to be careful about the impact this could have long range on the Kansas budget. And so that was her serious concern, was not necessarily that she was against tax cuts, was that the cost of them, and also once you put in those tax cuts, of course they're hard to get back, which nobody wants them to come back, right? Mm-hmm. You know, nobody likes to increase taxes. So she always argued, you know, yes, we want tax cuts, but once they're in there, every year they're going to impact the budget. And so it was a very large package. That with the food sales tax, Governor Kelly is basically saying, now let's see what it does to the budget, because we also have expenses that are going to go up along with inflation, whereas Republicans so far seem like, okay, it's going to be another session, let's cut taxes again.
I think what some Republican lawmakers are saying is month after month, we have seen higher revenues than expected. But I think, you know, we really have to look at it. Would this actually break the bank, do you think?
Well, I mean, here's what I think I'm saying in terms of explaining what the governor is saying. Right now, no. Right? You're right. Right now, yes, revenues are very good. And if you cut taxes right now and you look at it, then, you know, for a couple of years or whatever, looks fine. But what Governor Kelly is saying, well, what if, you know, what about 5 years down the road? What about if something hits? You can't take now to 2024, 2025 and say, well, it's going to be like that in 2030. So she's being very, very cautious, of course. And, you know, you can see both sides. You know, keeping a surplus and just letting it sit there versus, you know, some who say, hey, this money should go back to the taxpayers. But then we've had in Kansas, you know, these boomer busts when there's no surplus whatsoever, and then bad times hit, and now, oh my gosh, they need money very, very quickly, and they might have to raise taxes, and again, nobody likes to do that.
All right, Bob, thank you so much. When we come back, we have a look at some of the other big headlines this week. Stay with us. You're watching Inside Kansas Politics.
It's more than a move. It's a new job for her, a new baseball team for him, and for Badger, it's a new yard with more room to roam. It's more than a move, and we're more than a truck.
Brown's Tree Service does it all, from bushes to commercial clearing. We're a second-generation family-owned business that's been serving Northeast Kansas for over 50 years. Our robotic equipment is operated remotely, making the job safer and faster. We can easily maneuver tight spots. Our certified arborists will help keep your trees in tip-top shape. We'll protect them from disease and insects. Our large crew is insured and licensed. We're scheduling now. Contact Brown's Tree Service today.
From the moment you enter the drive, you'll know that McCrite Plaza is a unique community. Not only have we designed a gracious atmosphere, but we've created an environment for peace of mind. Hi, I'm Cassidy McCrite. On behalf of the entire McCrite family, we invite you to come and see what great living is all about. For more information, visit our website at mccriteplaza.com.
Can you believe it's already back to school season? We know that all you parents out there are busy in preparation for the new school year. One of the most important things you can do for your children before they head back to the classroom is to make sure they are ready for success. At Grace Med, we offer comprehensive school physicals, immunization shots, eye exams, and dental checkups. Plus, we can help with applying for or renewing your child's CanCare Medicaid card. So make your appointment at Grace Med. Call 785-861-8800 today.
Next live.
Henry Winkler's gonna be here?
TV legend Henry Winkler.
The Fonz.
I know.
I know, it's so exciting.
Plus, Krista Miller from Shrinking.
Monday at 11 on 27 KSNT.
Before we go, let's take a look at some other big updates this week. There was a big one on KU's campus. A lecturer is now on leave after a video of him making violent remarks in class. Now, his comments went viral on social media. He made remarks about men who won't vote for women, and he goes on to say, quote, "We could line all those guys up and shoot them." The university says they're investigating, and they also passed along an apology from the instructor. So, Bob, this is something that's pretty serious to say in a classroom full of students. And keep in mind, he doesn't teach politics, so it's a bit off topic as well. What are some of the things that KU may consider when making their final decision with this?
Yeah, the University of Kansas will have a process to look at this. I think some of the main consideration they'll have is the context, as you mentioned. What was the discussion about or the lecture about in the classroom? And actually, you might say, well, if it was off topic, that actually could be something to consider. That it wasn't really vital to the discussion, and therefore simply a mistake. The second is intent. We all know hate speech when we hear it. Some people actually, sadly, do it on purpose. And their intent is to say nasty things and horrible things. And I think KU will consider the intent of the professor in this in terms of the type of quote-unquote punishment that may happen.
Okay, let's also talk about a big race in District 3. We're going to turn there now. Sharice Davids is trying to defend her seat against Republican Prasanth Reddy, and we saw her TV ad, but now we're also seeing Reddy's TV ads that just came out. Here's one of them.
The drugs pouring across our border under Sharice Davids' watch are destroying lives here, including my own son's. Sharice Davids is costing Kansas lives, but Dr. Prasanth Reddy will save them. Reddy will secure our border and stop the drug epidemic.
This ad is nationalizing the race over the border issue. And so that's a Republican issue this time around, this election, and it's one that the Republicans nationally have been pushing because it's polling well, and the polls show a lot of people are concerned about the border issue. So the key to this race will be Sharice Davids saying, "I work for you," meaning she works for her district. And then if these type of ads continue by Prasanth Reddy, it's Prasanth Reddy saying, what's more important actually are these national issues that are so vital, which could include, we may see them, crime, maybe even the transgender issue, and obviously the border. What was really interesting about this is it's a national issue, but they had somebody local talking about it. We saw that. So a bit of a mixture there in order to localize a national issue.
All right, Bob, thank you so much. And that was your look inside Kansas politics. We'll see you next Sunday right here on 27 KSNT at 10:30 a.m. Have a good day.